welcome you to the 24th module of the Applied Linguistics course of the UGC program in Linguistics, the E-Pathshala program. This particular module is concerned with assessment, something that all schools, all teachers, all examinations are very fond of. But I think one of the basic questions that we need to ask about assessment is assessment about what? Assessment of whom? Basically, generally, it is the assessment of children, right? You assess the children. For what purpose? If you think about it, in a classroom, there is the teacher and there are, let's say, 40 children. Teachers generally know that these 4 or 5 or 6 will be at the top. They will be sort of 1 or 2 up and down. And these 25, 20 will be in the middle. And these 8 or 10 will be at the bottom. Why are you assessing? For what purpose? And then you give them a rank. You create situations for them which are full of anxiety, which are very threatening, and in fact they are so threatening that children cannot sleep in the night. Their parents become equally anxious, and they are in many cases pushed to suicide. It's not uncommon. It is now fortunate, for example, that the class 10 exam in India has been made optional. If you want, you take it. If you don't want, you don't take it. So at least for the first 11 years of your life, you can be, in principle, assessment free. But as most of you would know, that no school allows the children to survive without examination. Some kind of examination. They convert it into a weekly assessment or a fortnightly assessment, and then there is a monthly test, then there is a 3-month and 6-month and so on, and then there are yearly exams. They are contrary to the letter and spirit of the right to education, and they are obviously contrary to all ethical values of human society. But we continue doing this without reflecting that why are we doing it, what is the purpose. The purpose of this module is to analyze and reflect on this issue in some greater detail. If you think about the processes of classroom transaction and teaching and enhancing levels of proficiency and scholastic achievement of children, then teachers are equally responsible, materials are equally responsible, infrastructure is responsible, teaching aids that are available are responsible. We never make an assessment of them. I have never seen an assessment of teachers or materials being made and then that being correlated with the performance of the teachers. Why not? We never even, so we don't have that comprehensive view of assessment which we should have. So there are views which say that we must do regular assessment, we must do annual assessment, and there are views which say diametrically opposed that there should not be any assessment at all. The point I am trying to make is that the only meaningful assessment can be done if it acts as a feedback for the teacher to learn, for the teacher trainers to learn, for the material maker to learn. So if that kind of arrangement is made, if that kind of examination system or assessment system is created, it is worthwhile. Otherwise, I think it's a waste. We must appreciate the dialogic relationship that exists between the teacher, material, children, and the parents and the community at large. So the word assessment refers to all those activities undertaken by teachers and by other students in assessing their peer group and themselves. And you must have heard of 3 or 4 main terms in this context, which I would like to clarify as we go along, go through this module, and you can also read about them in the material that you have. You must have heard about not just semester end exam and annual exam and half yearly exam, but you must have heard about formative assessment, summative assessment, and the most popular thing these days is called CCE, comprehensive and continuous and comprehensive evaluation. What is assessment? What is evaluation? What are these terms? We will try to discuss. In a very fundamental way, formative assessment refers to something that continues happening as the course goes along. So this can happen every day, this can happen every week, but basically it is to give an idea to the teacher that what has happened to the child in terms of a day-to-day or a weekly kind of basis. Whereas the summative assignment, summative assessment is something that is done towards the end of the course, and you try to find out how much has been learned given the course as a whole. We also make a distinction, which you must have heard, between achievement and proficiency. Many people do not appreciate this distinction, and because they do not appreciate this distinction, it is difficult for them to say with any confidence whether the child has actually learned something or not. So this distinction is between achievement and proficiency. Achievement level tests and the achievement level assessment is course bound, is bound by what the teacher has actually taught in the classroom. The syllabus, the curriculum and the textbooks transacted in the classroom. Any assessment which is tied to them, so the questions will be asked on the lessons taught. That kind of assessment is called achievement test. But a proficiency level test crosses those boundaries. It remains within the same curriculum, but it makes sure that you can read new texts. Your reading comprehension abilities are strong enough to understand any new text. Your communicative skills are elaborated enough to enable you to negotiate any fresh encounters. Only then you are proficient. So there are various kinds of achievement tests and there are various kinds of proficiency tests. Techniques of assessment, may include all kinds of assessment. The child can assess herself. Possibly you give her a form and she will assess or give her a test and she can give her a mark herself. And there are a variety of ways of self-assessment, and then you can have peer group assessment. You ask children to write a small composition and every child passes the composition to the next child and they look at it and they share with the teacher and with their friends the level that has been reached in that particular language. Then there are all kinds of take-home projects, take-home assignments. You can do it on the computers and upload it for the teacher. There are, you make portfolios, you do concept mapping. I'm sure you're familiar with portfolios and concept mapping. Portfolio is a kind of file which is sometimes theme-based, sometimes it could be based on various projects, but you collect all those things in one place and they could be in different genre, they could be poems, stories, pictures, etc. And all that constitutes the basis for your assessment. So these are various techniques of assessment. Ideally speaking, all assessment or evaluation processes must be anxiety free. That is the bottom line. which is sort of asking for far too much, because all our examination, all our assessment systems create a very high level of anxiety, as I said, all around us. And research done in all kinds of skills, you know, reading comprehension, linguistic skills, writing, speaking, uh, communicative skills, coherence and cohesion. Whenever you test all these things, it is shown beyond any doubt that if the situation is anxiety free, then the performances are better. We should also understand that assessment and examination and evaluation, we will soon distinguish between assessment and evaluation. These are not one-off processes. You just take one off and take an exam, give a rank, and be done with it. No. Any form of assessment has to be a continuous process. That is the fundamental meaning of CCE, which is becoming increasingly fashionable. But as all of you may know, that CCE has been converted into huge forms and ticking and filling in sort of various kinds of grids. There is no reflection, there is no understanding of what CCE is and how it should be implemented. So these have to be continuous processes, and the features of CCE, that slide is on your screen, you can see it, and it says that the spirit of CCE is to enhance student learning both through assessment and evaluation. Assessment is a means to gather evidence to meet the requirement of evaluation. So assessment is continuously gathering information about the child's level, which then add up to show and give us some kind of a final judgment about the child, and that is called evaluation. And evaluation is the process of finding out as to what extent changes have taken place in the development and learning among children. It has to be based on reliable and valid evidence, otherwise you cannot say that my evaluation is valid. There are various types of tests. There are, for example, translation tests, that you give a text to translate and find the proficiency levels. There is, for example, the aptitude test to find out whether you have the aptitude for doing something or not. There is a diagnostic test where you find out what are your areas of weakness. And there are norm reference tests, in the sense, you have a certain kind of norm established, and you establish that if children approximate to that norm, then we will say that the child is successful, has acquired that level of proficiency. There is also the dictation test, not in the traditional sense. If you remember, traditionally dictation was very commonly used, which meant it was a kind of test which created high levels of anxiety. The teacher spoke something quickly and you were to write it accurately, and you always failed to write it accurately. But till a few years back, it was very common, not very common, but many people used it, that dictation was used in its new avatara, as it were. So what would happen is, it will go through 3 or 4 stages. The first stage would be that the teacher or one of the students would read a given text at a normal speed, okay? And everybody will listen, nobody will write. Second time, the teacher would read it at her normal pace, giving proper pauses, not rushing through the text. Then the children wrote. She read it the third time, this time rather slowly, to give the child an opportunity to correct herself. And I think this was a very useful way of checking spellings, checking subject verb agreement, checking syntax, checking punctuation marks, and it proved very, very successful for some time. However, one of the most commonly used proficiency tests is called the closed procedure, CLOZD. Okay, it's not CLOSE, it's CLOZD. That's how it has come to be known. Essentially speaking, you take a text which is at the level of children, in the sense at the level +1, in the sense that children will be able to read it and children will be able to understand it. So it is cognitively pitched at their level. The second thing, what is technically called that you mutilate the text. What does that mean? That you keep the beginning intact, you keep the end intact. So you are reducing the anxiety, and then you delete randomly every nth word. So generally you delete either every 6th or 7th word or 5th word, that's all. You don't delete every 3rd word or every 2nd word, which would make the text completely incomprehensible, and you don't delete the 9th or 10th word, which will make the text very easy. So after a lot of research, it has been established that it's a good idea to delete the 5th, 6th or the 7th word. It is that the closed procedure, once you have 30 or 40, 25 to 30 deletions done, you have a whole text and you are ready with a very reliable and very valid test of language proficiency. The interesting thing about the closed procedure is that you may count it any time, you end up deleting almost an equal amount of grammatical and content words. Okay, an equal amount of grammatical items like is, am, are, was, were, has, have, had, and things like that, an equal amount of nouns like table, chair, or good, bad, etc., adjectives, adverb, and other content words, nouns and verbs. So close turns out to be an equally good test of the grammatical ability and of the general proficiency level in terms of your lexical control. Another important aspect of close is that it's very easy to mark. So you just need a list of words. It can be even marked by a computer, and you just give a grade in a very simple form. Another major advantage of the closed procedure is it's highly versatile. You can use it in a sentence filling mode. You can use it for a spelling filling mode, that you say receive, conceive, deceive. Let us say you leave the middle blank and you put the ends and let the children fill in the spellings. That becomes a spelling close. Okay. But generally it is used in a text. It is text based because the argument is that unless you understand the text properly, you cannot fill in the blanks properly. You don't have to get 100 out of 100. In the closed procedure, there is a whole discussion about the exact retrievals and the acceptable retrievals. But in terms of measuring the proficiency levels, it doesn't matter, because everybody's score will go up if you include the acceptable words also. So if you get about 50% marks in the closed procedure, you are considered to be fairly fluent. If you get, say, between 33 to 49%, you are considered to be at the instructional level, that with some help you will be able to do much better. But below that, what is unfortunately called the frustration level, it means you need a lot more help. So there are all kinds of tests available, all kinds of evaluation assessment procedures available, but let us always keep one thing at the center, that we are doing everything for the learner, and we are doing all these things to learn something more about what we should do as teachers, as teacher trainers, as material writers, and as curriculum creators. Thank you very much.